Some players are born into football royalty. Others, they must fight their way up from places most people don't think about. Szekesfehervar. It's not exactly known for producing global football stars, but in 2000, a kid was born there with a dream, and a father who made sure that dream didn't stay just a dream. Dominik Szoboszlai wasn't just another talented kid. He was different, obsessed, a perfectionist, the type of player who'd rather stay out and hit free kicks for hours and go home. From tearing it up in Hungary to becoming the golden boy of RB Salzburg, and then making his mark in the Bundesliga, his rise was rapid. The goals, the assists, the swagger, he had it all. But football, well, it doesn't always go to plan. 1 minute you're the main man, and the next you're warming the bench. Injuries, form, tactics. Suddenly, Szoboszlai wasn't a guaranteed starter anymore, but a new manager came in and he is suddenly better. So how did he go from bench to reborn under Arne Slot? This is a story of how a Balkan boy became Liverpool's engine. Before the bright lights, the roaring Anfield crowd, and the €70 million transfer fee, there was just a kid with a ball and a dream. And trust me, this wasn't some overnight success story. Dominik Szoboszlai had to grind for everything. So picture this: Szekesfehervar, Hungary. Not exactly the first place that comes to mind when you think of future football superstars, right? Hungary has history, sure, the mighty Madiars, Puskás, all that. But in modern football, it's not exactly a talent factory. And yet, in this small city, Dominik was born into a family that lived and breathed football. Now, here's where it gets interesting. A lot of young players rely on academies to develop their skills, but for Szoboszlai, his biggest influence was his dad, Zsolt. And let me tell you, this guy was serious about football. He wasn't just a supportive father, he was a coach, a mentor, and at times his son's toughest critic. Dominik wasn't just kicking the ball around for fun. His dad made sure of that. While other kids were playing video games or hanging out, he was out on the pitch training, relentlessly. Free kicks, passing drills, ball control, over and over again, until it was perfect. And when I say perfect, I mean perfect. If he took 50 free kicks and one was slightly off, his dad would make him start over. That's the level of discipline we're talking about here.
He was with me always harder than with the others. Even the other parents was like, why are you so hard with him? Why are you so hard with him? And he was like, it will pay at the end.
And guess what? It worked. By the time he was a teenager, Szoboszlai was already showing signs of being a special player. He started his journey at Vidalton's academy. Yeah, the same Vidalton that once stunned Real Madrid in the 80s. But it didn't take long before bigger clubs started paying attention. He was too good to stay in Hungary. He needed a bigger stage. So, at just 16, he packed his bags and moved to Austria to join Liverpool, the feeder club for Red Bull Salzburg. And this was the moment everything changed. 16 years old, moving to a new country, new language, new culture, all while chasing a dream that only a handful of players achieve. But Szoboszlai, he thrived under pressure. In Austria, he wasn't just another academy kid. He was a standout talent, dominating against players older and more experienced than him. And then came the big jump to RB Salzburg, where his name started ringing bells across Europe. Suddenly, this kid from Hungary was scoring bangers in the Austrian Bundesliga, running games in the Champions League, and making everyone pay attention. But it all started with that relentless training, that hunger, and that drive instilled in him from day one. Without that foundation, without those endless hours with his dad, there's no way he will become the player he is today. It's crazy, right? From a small Hungarian town to the Red Bull system, and eventually to the biggest stage in England. But we're just getting started, because Salzburg was only the beginning. Imagine this: you're 18 years old, you've just left home and moved to a new country, and suddenly you're playing for a club known for creating superstars. No pressure, right? But for Dominik Szoboszlai, this wasn't pressure. This was the moment he'd been training for his whole life. When he arrived at Red Bull Salzburg, he wasn't just another kid with potential. He was a player with purpose. And if there's one thing you need to know about Salzburg, this club doesn't wait for talent to mature. If you're good enough, you play. Simple as that. And Szoboszlai, he was more than good enough. The first thing you noticed about him was his confidence. Not the cocky, over-the-top kind, but the kind that makes you stop and say, yeah, this guy knows exactly what he's doing. Whether it was the way he moved with the ball, the way he picked out impossible passes, or the fact he was taking free kicks like he was prime David Beckham, he just had it. And then came the moment that put him on the map: Champions League. Salzburg, a club from Austria, was thrown into a group with Liverpool, Napoli, and Genk. Now, be honest, on paper you'd expect them to get destroyed, right? But nah, Salzburg came to play. And Szoboszlai, he wasn't just out there surviving, he was thriving. Against Napoli, he scored his first Champions League goal, and suddenly, scouts all over Europe started taking notes. That was just the beginning. By the 2019-20 season, he was the guy for Salzburg. Everything ran through him. The goals, the assists, the creativity. He was pulling the strings in midfield like a conductor leading an orchestra. 9 goals, 14 assists. And he wasn't just stat padding in the Austrian league, he was making it look easy. And here's the crazy part, he wasn't even playing in his best position yet. He was mainly deployed on the left wing, cutting inside to use that ridiculous right foot of his. But deep down he knew, and everyone watching knew, this guy was born to play in midfield, controlling the game. And then came the turning point. When you're balling out at Salzburg, there's only one direction your career goes. You move up. And in December 2020, the offers started flying in. Arsenal wanted him, AC Milan wanted him, even Real Madrid had his name on their list. But instead of chasing a glamorous move, he did something smarter. He went to RB Leipzig. Now let's be real, moving to Leipzig from Salzburg isn't exactly a fairy tale transfer. It's like moving from the guest house to the main house, but you're still on the same property. But Szoboszlai knew exactly what he was doing. Leipzig played the same Red Bull style, high-pressing, attacking football. He didn't have to adjust, he didn't have to sit on the bench, he could get straight to work. At least that was the plan, but football doesn't always follow the script. Injury. Right before he could even step on the pitch for Leipzig, Szoboszlai got hit with a setback, a stubborn adductor injury that kept him out for months. Months. Imagine that. You finally make your big move. You're ready to take on the Bundesliga, and instead of playing, you're stuck rehabbing, watching from the sidelines. For a player like Szoboszlai, who thrives on rhythm, confidence, and momentum, this was a nightmare. And suddenly, for the first time in his career, there were doubts. Was he going to live up to the hype? Would he bounce back? Or was this just another case of a wonder kid who peaked too soon? But if there's one thing we've learned about Dominik Szoboszlai, it's that he doesn't fold. He didn't just recover, he came back stronger. By the time he was fully fit, Leipzig gave him a bigger role in midfield, and guess what? He thrived. Goals, assists, creativity. He picked up right where he left off in Austria. But now he was doing it in one of the top leagues in the world. And then, in the summer of 2023, the big one happened. Liverpool came knocking. 70 million euros. He was now the most expensive Hungarian footballer of all time. That was it. The Premier League, the biggest stage. And under Klopp, he was expected to become Liverpool's new midfield engine. But here's the twist. It didn't go exactly as planned. At first, he was flying. His energy, his pressing, his ability to carry the ball. Liverpool fans thought they had a gem on their hands. But as the season wore on, something changed. Klopp started rotating him more, his minutes dropped. Injuries played a part, sure, but there was a feeling that he wasn't quite the untouchable starter everyone expected him to be. And then, Klopp was gone. New manager, new system, new rules. And just like that, Szoboszlai's Liverpool career was at a crossroads. But just when people started doubting him, along came Arne Slot, and under the new boss, something clicked. Szoboszlai wasn't just back, he was better. So how did he go from being a benchwarmer under Klopp to being reborn under Arne Slot? Well, that's what we're about to find out. But before we talk about that, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Now, back to the video. Under Klopp, Szoboszlai was asked to do a bit of everything. He had to press, cover ground, track back, and still be an attacking threat. Now, it sounds great in theory, but in reality, it's spread him too thin. He was doing a lot, but not excelling in any one area. And when he came back from that hamstring injury, he looked lost in the system. That's where Slot stepped in and gave him a more defined role, a role that lets him shine. Now, Szoboszlai is playing smarter, not just harder. Instead of running himself into the ground, he's making more calculated movements. One of the biggest changes is off-the-ball runs. Slot has tweaked his positioning so that he makes these deceptive diagonal runs, pulling defenders away and creating space for Liverpool's attackers, especially Salah. We saw it perfectly against Brighton and Chelsea. Szoboszlai's movement dragged defenders out of position, giving Salah extra time to operate. That's not something you see on the stat sheet, but it's crucial. Another key tweak? His role in breaking down defensive blocks. Against teams that park the bus, Liverpool used to struggle to find gaps in the final third. But now, Szoboszlai is arriving late into the box just when defenders are shifting their focus. That unpredictability is a nightmare for defenders. Just ask Man United. At Old Trafford, he was constantly disrupting their defensive shape with his movement and pressing. And speaking of pressing, Slot has turned Szoboszlai into a pressing machine, but in a way that makes sense. Instead of aimlessly chasing the ball, he's pressing with purpose, cutting off passing lanes and forcing errors. It's one thing to run a lot, it's another to run smart. And Szoboszlai has mastered it. He's become the engine of Slot's Liverpool, a player who links midfield to attack, contributes defensively, and keeps the team's structure intact. And let's not forget his adaptability. In one game, he's part of a double pivot, helping stretch the midfield. The next, he's playing higher up, linking up with Salah and providing an outlet for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Liverpool's midfield shape constantly shifts. 1 minute it's a 3-2-5, the next it's a 4-1-4-1. For that system to work, you need intelligent players who can adapt instantly. Szoboszlai does that better than anyone. Look, it's easy to focus on goals and assists. And sure, Szoboszlai isn't banging in 30-yard screamers every week, but his influence on the team goes way beyond stats. His work rate, tactical awareness, and pressing ability make him one of the most important players in Slot's system. That's why the Szoboszlai isn't producing enough argument doesn't hold up. He's doing the dirty work, the stuff that makes a team tick. If you need proof of why patience is key in football, just look at Rodri's first season at Man City. People doubted him and questioned if he was the right fit. Now, he's arguably the best defensive midfielder in the world. Szoboszlai's journey is following a similar path. He may not have had a perfect start at Liverpool, but with Slot's guidance, he's evolving into a midfield giant. With Slot, we're seeing a different level of Szoboszlai, and I don't think this is going to be his best. But what do you think? Can he be world class? Well, let me know in the comments.